What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to Offline Xpression, the teen art revolution. My name is Jeff Hinderscheid. I am your host, and we are back. The explosion, the music that my guests can't hear. It makes me so sad, but I can hear it, and I'm pumped up and fired about it. And we're going to get that fixed later. But for now, I will tell you that I am not joined by my amazing youth ambassador and co-host, Victoria Jones. We let her go to school. It is finals week after all. But don't you worry. We have an amazing guest with us tonight. This is Katherine Sellery. Katherine, say hello to everybody.
Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. I know this has been a long time coming. We've been trying to get this locked in for a while, and here we are.
Yay!
We made it work. I figured we would.
Love it.
So you're in Denver, Colorado, yes?
I am. I'm in Denver. Yes. Beautiful day here.
Is it? What's the weather like at this time of year? Is it beautiful?
It's been funny. Yeah. I mean, we're having a lot of rain, which
nice.
is not Denver's normal, but it sure is welcome because my flowers are blooming. My garden is gorgeous. It's just loving and soaking it all up.
Excellent.
Wonderful.
Yes. It is May after all. So I guess,
yeah.
The showers of April are just lingering a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. Well, Colorado, we've kind of had that drought thing going for a pretty long time, but we are thrilled to have the rain.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And, we're just starting to heat up here. This is always the time of year here in where I'm at in Central California where some
gorgeous.
days it's super hot. All of a sudden we're like, whoa, where'd 96 come from? It was just 70.
Whoa,
and then 2 days later, it's overcast, it's windy and freezing. And you're like, what is happening? But it's just like, the world is trying to shake the winter and just, remove the jacket, if you will, and get ready for summer.
Yeah.
But this weekend, it's supposed to be up in the high 90s, low
Whoa.
100s. So we're coming.
Wow.
Yeah. End of the school year.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah, end of the school year always does that to people. I don't know. The weather just likes to say, hey, summer, you take over. So we like that. So anyway, welcome to Offline Xpression. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you.
Katherine, I have been looking at your website and reading up about the work that you're doing. I can't say enough good things about it. Obviously, our missions are definitely aligned, but I would like to give you the opportunity to kind of just introduce yourself to everybody. Tell us who you are, what you do, and all about that passion that you're into. Go for it.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. So, Katherine Sellery, Conscious Parenting Revolution. And I really think of myself as a child advocate or a young adult teen advocate who might spend part of their life wondering why they live in a world where they are not seen, heard, and understood from their perspective or made to feel wrong or bad if they have a voice that is different than the powers that be. And so it really is about recognizing the sovereignty that, children are people too, is sort of the mantra, is that, even though you might be younger, that doesn't mean that you're not a full-fledged human being that has feelings, needs, perspectives that might differ from the powers that be around you. And how can you speak up and honor self in a way in which you feel that you can be both considerate of your own as well as other people's perspectives. And I think that's really difficult for young people of any age, because there is an unconscious ageism. There's a bias.
There is.
And the bias says that if you are not the elder in the room, that you're supposed to kowtow and you're just supposed to defer to. And anything that looks even like speaking up for self is perceived often by nasty words like disrespectful or, ways that make it feel really hard for younger people to be able to speak not from a place of anything other than sovereignty and wanting to be honest and transparent without it having anything to do with retaliation, rebellion, and resistance. So retaliation, rebellion, and resistance, the 3 R's is what adult parents would come to me without having the language themselves to know it, but they've activated the retaliation, rebellion, and resistance in the conversations and how they go about handling conflict resolution. And they are reaping the harvest of their own choices and decisions around the lack of a collaborative problem-solving model and relying on things like power over.
Yes,
So
I'm the
kind
parent,
of
you're the child.
But yeah, but basically just introducing that wanting to be seen, heard, and understood is human for everyone. And it has nothing to do with disrespect.
Right.
And if you're dealing with the party on the other side who views that the only way you show respect is to dismiss yourself, betray yourself, then we're always going to be in a bind where I'm going to have to somehow betray me in order to keep my relationship with this person outside of me in what their fantasy land believes is a good standing. So it's just, we got to build a different model, one where adults and those younger than them that they're stewards of have a voice and an ability to speak up for themselves without it being perceived as wrong.
Wow, that is wonderful work that you are doing. I
Thank
agree.
You. Long-winded?
Oh, no. Long-winded? No way. You came to the right place for long-winded. I'm like a bagpipe over here. That said, a couple of the things you mentioned really resonated with me. The first thing I thought of was there was one generation ago, 2 generations ago, really. I mean, it was such a different world for children to where, other people could discipline your children, right? Like people, like your child's outside on the grass in the lawn next door and someone would come outside and get off my lawn and smack. My mom told me a story about this once, and my grandfather came out and said, "What happened?" And the guy said, "She was on my lawn." And he said, "I am so sorry," and dragged her away. And I'm like, wow, that is rough. So many good things have happened in terms of child protection, but now there's this really crazy breakdown in communication. And I think that's kind of what I was getting and what I was hearing you say, and I agree with, because I've raised 2 of my own kids that are now older and they're adults, but I also have a 10-year-old. So I'm doing things so different, right? We do it better. Yeah. We get better and better the more we learn and stuff. So one of the things that used to just set me off for no reason, I think, and by set me off, I mean it would just be frustrating, is that word that you're talking about, disrespectful. When things feel disrespectful, but you're not seeing the forest through the trees and being able to really break down intent, right? And so when you get to that space, you don't do a really good job teaching how we say things, how we communicate, so that you provide a safe space for communication, so there isn't this shutdown that triggers that retaliation, and that resistance and rebellion you're talking about is critical. There's like this missing piece I think a lot of parents don't seem to have right now. A lot of adults, teachers, I mean, it's really hard, and it's really hard for them, but kids are kids. They deserve the chance to be children and to be teens and preteens and adolescents and learn things. And they learn that stuff from the adults around them. So when they don't feel like they can say anything, that's a problem. Yet we all want our kids to be empowered and strong and speak up for themselves. And then we swat them down sometimes when they try to do that.
It's fascinating to me. We do the very thing that gets in the way of us achieving that, what do we call it, self-assured, assertive, young person who's able to speak up for themselves.
Yep.
Not in a way that has anything to do with, disrespect, but has to do with assertiveness. So the rules have changed, to acknowledge your point. I think that, there is a crack. The revolution is not just starting. It's been going on for a while in consciousness around being able to perceive a younger person's willingness and wanting to share their perspective as something that could be seen as positive.
Right. Yeah. And
but it wasn't always that way, right? I mean, it
yeah.
was like you're seen and not heard, and that's not just an expression. It was really a modality.
Yeah,
Like,
that was like a
you're to be
cultural
seen and
norm.
not heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking up was actually, I mean, the words disrespect are even used today.
Yeah, it was speak when you are spoken to was the other cultural norm that you heard a lot.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
my mom listens to this, so I hope she doesn't take offense to it, but we're going to go there. Mom, I love you. I know you didn't mean it. But we often laugh about the fact that she had this 1-2 punch. One was, I'm the parent, you're the child. And that's a done deal. That is an end of a conversation. That's a conversation ender. There's nothing else to say, I guess. And then the second was, and this one really, we laugh a lot about this. That may be your reality, but that is not my reality.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, those two together, and she didn't do this all the time. My mom was great. Don't hear what I'm not saying. But when you know, when things get to a heightened sense and you kind of fall back into old habits, or you know, she was doing way better than my grandfather did, you know. But when you get into one of those moments, those kind of words can just, what do you do with that? There's nowhere else to go. Well, if I'm not allowed to talk at all, and even if I did, I'm not going to be heard because what you think happened trumps what I think happened. There's no point in communicating at all in the future. And I was lucky. She would always come back after those conversations and apologize, and we'd have really good moments. But so many kids don't get that. And so let me just dive right in then. You know, you're doing this, you're a coach, you work in this field and with these populations. So one of the things that we're seeing right now, and I guess it's always kind of been like this, but we're seeing this really interesting shift in language, right? We've all heard of brain rot. We've all heard of things that like slang and different things that are said that parents just get right away turned off by that in the first place. But kids also have their own communication style, and now the ability to talk to everyone all the time with the digital age. So now they're veering farther and farther away, perhaps, when they don't have an opportunity to have a voice. What sort of things are you seeing in terms of trends with these communication barriers between parents and children, you know, trusted adults and youth?
Yeah, I think that, you know, if you feel like you don't have that relationship with your parents, then you find your communication is so shut down that you might fire them. And so I think that parents get fired.
I see.
And they're basically getting a lot of feedback. I'm a real believer in feedback, right? I mean, feedback tells me everything about my relationships, whether it's my relationships with, let's say, a parent, or whether it's my relationship with my own kids or friends. It's just interesting to see how I respond and who I fire when I fire them and why I do it. And also, you know, and that's me, little me, child me to adult me. But I think it's true for all of us, is that the relationship is a relationship. And somehow it gets pulled out and pocketed out as if it's somehow a different relationship than other human dynamics.
Right.
And, you know, it's almost as though we're nicer to our neighbors than we are to our friends and our own children.
Right.
You know, the people that we're further apart from in terms of intimacy and closeness, we tend to be more formal with and kinder and have better manners. And the closer I am to you, the worse my manners are and my language and, you know, how I respond. And I guess, you know, sometimes when I'm working with parents who have kids whose behavior is absolutely diabolical, at least we can say that they feel close enough to you to let it really show.
Right. That's a good point.
You know, it's a bizarre thing, but if I didn't feel close enough to you, I wouldn't be able to show you all of this.
Right.
So that's an interesting walk away, you know, from our normal sort of this is diabolical behavior to, oh, wow, you know, at least you feel close enough to me to let me know how badly you feel.
Right.
So, you know, don't take it personally. Yeah. If somebody's falling apart, separate yourself to be able to at least see that person who's falling apart as literally drowning.
Yeah.
And if you could just see them as drowning and almost turned a blind eye to everything else that's being communicated, then you might want to get in your little rowboat and, row your way out into the ocean and pluck them out of the ocean where they're drowning and put them in the rowboat and wrap them in a towel and give them a cup of hot cocoa and let them know they're okay, that you're there and they're not alone. Right? Yeah. And so that's kind of like all I need to say today, really, is that if we just see diabolical behavior as a cry for help.
Yeah, have pity, right? It's
empathy.
And I mean, like, pitying somebody sounds so trite, but you know what I mean. Empathy, like,
yeah.
And the 4 agreements list that out. One of the big ones is don't take anything personally, because what they're showing you is a reflection of them,
Exactly.
and if you can get to that place where it's not bringing you to your own dark spot where you're going down the ladder to meet that, then
right.
You have every opportunity to make sure that A, you understand it's not about you, and B, you can help. You can get involved and get them out of that, or help them out, and and that's a super important thing. So when you're talking about kids or teens or whatever, right? One of the things that I find really important for parents to kind of educate themselves on a little bit and know a little bit more about is the developmental stages that they're in. The brain, the emotions, the body, they're all in different stages. Now, you're going to see the physical, but if you don't understand kind of how egocentrism works, or how the social dynamics of puberty work, not just the body, and like how what's going on for them is everything in their world, and it's hard to manage and navigate when you have zero coping skills because you're not old enough to have been through them, then it kind of gives you a new set of lenses to put on so that you can kind of go, oh, this is about this, not about that. And then you bring it down and you accept and invite them into a conversation to share. I think that's super important.
I love everything you said. Yeah, I love everything you said. I mean, I also think that, when I work with parents, I also can show it as a developmental, which you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're talking about behavior, developmentally, sometimes it's easier for them to go, oh, yeah, I wouldn't expect my 3-year-old to know how to spell. It would be really, extraordinary for them to know how to spell. In fact, I know they have to learn it.
Right.
It's a whole convention to learn how to spell. And when we put it into the academic side, we are much more like our adult parents' nervous systems do not get activated when our 4 or 5 or 6-year-old comes home and they've misspelled a bunch of words on a spelling test. At that stage, we're like, oh, yeah, I before E, except after C, it's like a convention. You just have to memorize it.
You'll get it. You'll get it.
Wonder you made it. You'll get it.
Right.
If you need support, I'm here for you. If you're really struggling with reading and writing and arithmetic, then we'll get you a tutor. And we instantly go into support.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's not even something we have to talk about. Everybody goes into support. And if their kids are lagging behind, they may need an IEP and even more support. And we get all of it for them. And we never once punish them for not knowing it.
Right.
But when it comes to behavior, somehow behavior gets carved out and excluded from developmental stages. We expect them to know how to manage their emotions. We expect them to know how to present themselves. We expect them to be able to say, I'm really struggling to meet my needs for autonomy.
Right.
And so when you ask me to do these things without my having a sense of choice, I really struggle because I feel as though I don't matter. What child knows how to say that?
Right.
So instead of saying any of that, because they don't know how to tie their feelings to their needs, they don't even know that they have needs for autonomy. They don't even know that they have needs for choice. All they know is that their needs have been violated. The way we know that they've been violated is that they're throwing what we would call a fit, right, or the manifestation of the unmet need.
Yeah, the raw emotion on the top.
Exactly. And it shows up when needs are met. You've got the doop-de-doo, happy little kid.
Yeah.
And when they're not met, you've got this, person swinging from a chandelier.
Yep.
And in the context of, these milestones in reading, writing, and arithmetic, or even the physical milestones that you're talking about, there's also these other milestones around behavior. And if we could just put them back into sort of like the norms of they need to learn this just like they need to learn how to ride a bicycle, then start to teach skills as opposed to get mad if they don't have them.
Yeah. And you know what's so funny? You said, like, what child knows how to say that? I know plenty of adults who don't know how to say that, who just can't. And if they would model that behavior, guess who learns? The child.
Exactly. And instead, what they see modeled, or what we all see modeled still to this day with people in our lives, is blame consciousness. What we hear is, you make me feel so mad when you...
I was just going to say, my mom told me from a young age, nobody can make you that. Yeah. No one can make you feel that way. When I was young, she would say, no. I did not make you mad. You are mad. That's how you're feeling. And it's because of this. And there may be a good reason for it, but I didn't make you that way. And like, she was very good at that stuff. Yeah. So,
well, that's unusual. Most people will just go through life modeling that other people make me feel, and that the catalyst of my feelings is the cause, as if it's possible that the catalyst can be the cause of how I feel. It's not.
Right.
But nevertheless, generations of people have been raised to believe that other people have the power and control over their emotional realm, and that other people make them feel. And they spend their lives busily blaming others as if they'd caused it, and then punishing them for having made me feel that way. Yeah. When the whole thing is a lie.
Yeah. And I think that there's an interesting crossover of different layers here, because I think there's a fine line to walk between earning your stripes, for lack of better terms, right? Like, obviously you don't want a child literally being disrespectful and sarcastic and rude, right? So there's that level of no, that's not the kind of language we use. But being able to express feelings is so valuable and so important in the rest of your life forever, that teaching open lines of communication and how to do it and practicing it just like you would practice anything else, that is so low on the priority list for so many parents. And it's not because they don't care. It's not because they don't want to do better. It's because maybe they literally don't know how to meet them in that place. So what do you tell a parent that is having when they come to you and you're seeing the 3 R's and we've got an issue, right? Like what kind of training, advice, structure do you offer them?
Yeah. So if you've got the language that the parent is labeling disrespectful, the first thing we really need to go back to is kind of like the rules of the road, the cornerstone to assertiveness versus aggressiveness, and understanding when somebody is signaling that they're drowning. And if you want to go into my experience of your drowning behavior, then that's
I like it. I love all this stuff. Yeah.
My experience of your drowning behavior is not going to help you drown better.
Oh.
In fact, I have obviously people I coach, and some people, for periods of time, because learning these concepts is quite easy, but having them and implementing them is actually quite difficult.
Right.
Right. Because we're overcoming our patterning, which is not just what we grew up with, but what presumably the generation before us and before us and before us. I mean, we're talking about multiple, maybe up until now. We could say your family lineage up until now has been to lean into everything that doesn't work. And you are going to be the one that makes the change, not only for you, but for your children and for the generations that come after.
Breaking the cycle.
Because you're doing the hard work. You're breaking the cycle.
That's
exactly. Right. And you're taking the time to breathe deeply when a child who is so activated and is in so much pain and is drowning in so many diabolical ways that you have truly learned not to focus on my experience of your drowning behavior, but to be able to put my experience of being around someone drowning over to the side and to just be present to the fact that, oh my God, you're drowning, which instantly changes my demeanor. from wanting to be critical of your drowning behavior, critical of the words that you use when you drown, critical. And then we get back to what you said, like, of course I don't want people to drown that way.
Right.
But to be quite honest, how people drown is a very difficult thing to coach for.
Right.
And if you want to start with coaching for good drowning behavior, then that becomes almost a prerequisite to being present,
Yeah, that's great. So, that's like a microcosm.
Shift your mind. Yeah, shift your mind completely away from coaching for good drowning behaviors.
Right.
Because you can teach a child to become so afraid of their drowning in your presence because you make it all about you.
That they bottle it all up.
That they bottle it all up. And then those are the kids who end up either going into schools on shooting rampages and or those are the kids who take themselves out.
Yeah, and on top of that, they go on to do the same thing with their own kids someday.
That's right, and repeat the pattern, because unwittingly we repeated the pattern.
That's exactly right. And that's why patterns are patterns, and that's why cycles continue, right?
And here's the thing. The pattern isn't even me. It's not who I am. I am so much bigger than the patterns that are imprinted in my DNA, in my family of lineage. I am not my patterns. It's as though I'm sleepwalking through my incarnation when I just allow the pattern to be my way of being. It's as though I'm not even here.
Right.
When I show up in that big sense of the big I, the bigger self, then I am truly the observer of everything that's going on. I am so centered that I'm capable of being present to what's unfolding and being able to say, wow, I feel like I'm the witness of a generational pattern of response that happened not only with my own growing up, but before me with my parents and before them with theirs and so forth and so on. And here you and I are trying desperately to connect because we love each other so much. And yet we are so burdened by the patterns of our familial system that we are breaking through them.
Right.
And truly, desperately trying to just be present to each other so that we feel like I can see you and I can be present to you in a way in which you finally learn how to see me too.
It's so important. And like, it's so hard to do that when things are already escalated, right?
It is, yeah.
It's not something that you can just go, I'll wait till the next episode and I'll be ready. It doesn't work like that, because once the reptilian brain takes over, you will fall back into those generations and generations and generations of habits, because it's what you know, it's what you've been conditioned to do. It's how you want to do it in that moment. You can't actually see that, oh, yeah, I remember I was going to do this differently because I don't like the way this goes. You actually are just, it's over, right? So what's the age group or age range of children and parents that you work with? Is there one? Is it all ages?
Yeah, it's so funny. I would say if I look at like I've been doing this for 25 years, and if I kind of look at the arc of all those years, many years of my life, 15, I'd say, I was the back to school night guest speaker at a bunch of different schools. And so when I would show up in those schools, I was often talking to younger kids, parents of younger kids. And I would say those are the aspirational parents who are desperately trying to be the best mom and dad or mom and moms or whatever the combination is,
right, that
are really, really present. And the aspiring parent. I would say that over time, while I love to speak to that group of parents, and they're the ones where we really have the best chance of creating a new operating system for conflict resolution, other than because I said so, I'm your mother, I'm your father, I'm your this,
right,
using power and position in order to create forced obedience and compliance, and then reinforcing that terrible toxic model with things like rewards and punishments and threats, which all activate. They are the reason, and they do activate the retaliation, rebellion, and resistance, so that then you're dealing with the secondary problems all of the time.
Ooh, I definitely want to come back to that.
Of the problems. Yeah, we'll come back to that. 75% of behavioral disruptions from the research is retaliation, rebellion, and resistance. So 3 out of 4 of my problems are dealing with the responses that were activated by how I dealt with the initial problem of whatever it might be, staying out too late, not cleaning up the dishes, not doing your homework, not brushing your teeth. I mean, all of those, like, good, healthy habits that we're trying to instill in our children.
Right.
All of the work that we go toward instilling good, healthy, lifetime habits, brushing your teeth, getting up, making your bed, putting your dishes in the sink or the dishwasher, whatever the family routine is for you. Those are great habits.
Sure.
And we want to instill those habits. And if we go about using power, rewards, punishments, and threats to create those habits, what we do instead of creating those habits is create the resistance, the retaliation, and the rebellion. And then we spend most of our time dealing with the 3 R's and create bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger distance between us.
So for younger kids, it's probably, I mean, for me, I'll just speak for me. I was a social worker for a while. I worked in CPS for a while, and I've worked with lots of different families, lots of different children at different ages, and it's always a journey. But with younger kids, you have a couple of things that are going in your favor. One is adults usually, if they're healthy in some way, they still see that child as much smaller than them, and they realize that they are in total physical control. And that is maybe subconscious, maybe not, but that's like this piece, okay? The second piece is they're still cute, right? There's some cute moments. There's these things they're learning that they're not even teenagers where their body's all like starting to turn into an adult. They're just cute little kids. So you have this extra piece that goes, okay, they're learning or whatever. But so that's good. But you also have this really formative time where if you do it right now, nice and early, you might build some really good teenage years coming up that most people are really struggling with regardless. Like you could have the greatest kid in the universe who's smart, who's talented, who's able to go and show up and talk and do all these extracurricular things, but teenage years are teenage years and you're going to have your conflicts. So that stuff at the younger age, I think is ideal. Like that is a good time. Now the thing going against you is they're not really old enough yet to fully understand all that stuff. So you just have to piece by piece building blocks. Hey, these are I statements. This is how you express feelings. We are going to talk every day about how your day was. Tell me 2 things that went well. Tell me, you can still build these really positive habits that open the line of communication. But what do you do when you get to the teenage years and this stuff's been going on for a long time? Now it's part of their day-to-day habit. Now it's part of their conditioning and what they know. And now you have to break down the cycle of 2 different parties, not just the parent and the adult, but now also the teen, and show that you're working towards the same goal, both of you from 2 different angles. How much resistance, rebellion, and retaliation do you get from them?
Yeah. So I mean, exactly what you said. I mean, the reason that I love getting to support families in the formative ages is that we can help them implement the model of collaborative problem solving, where everybody's feelings and needs are taken into consideration. It doesn't mean that we yield power and control in that sense of being the captain of the family. We don't do that. I mean, we're the captains of the family no matter what.
Right.
But we don't use power and control to force compliance. What we're looking for is the ability to create an atmosphere in which children learn to be considerate, not only of themselves, but of other people.
Mm-hmm.
So that when we build the foundation using an understanding of feelings arise, and feelings arise when our needs are not being met, and we value everyone's needs being met, which is different than wants, and then people would really be able to discern the difference between what are wants and what are needs, and they themselves as the adults learn the language of feelings, learn the language of needs. We know that from the research that, of course, being able to bring my own temperature down has a lot to do with my ability to talk about what's happening internally to myself.
Right.
And I need a vocabulary to do that.
Yeah.
So I need to have that vocabulary so that I'm not in victim blame consciousness, that I'm living in accountability as the adult, so that I can teach my children to be living in accountability because they see it for them, right?
Right.
The mirror is there.
Yeah.
They can see what the modeling looks like.
They'll respect you more for it.
Yeah, I'm accountable for my own feelings and I'm accountable for meeting my needs. I recognize the catalysts that get in the way of my needs being met. I'm able to address the catalyst without being in an overreaction and without being irresponsible about my language, which is somehow in blame around other people. So I get clean. I, as the adult, get clean. All right, let's pretend I wasn't. Let's pretend that I was not here and I was just allowing all of those dysfunctional, toxic family patterns from history up until now to control me. And I was not the observer of what was happening. I was deep in it and drowning.
Right.
All right. Now I'm reaping the harvest of the 3 R's. And now I realize, oh my God, I created this.
Right.
What can I do to change it? So accountability is great.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I've really hurt our relationship. I think that when you were screaming for help, I wasn't focused on the fact that you were drowning. I was focused on my experience of you not knowing how to drown politely. I didn't even realize that I had the rule that if you can't drown politely, I won't take my lifeboat out and help you, but I did.
Right.
And as it turned out, I was more concerned with you knowing how to be polite about your drowning than the fact that you were drowning. I get that now. I didn't know that then. I also realized that I was more interested in forced compliance than I was in everybody's needs being met. And that I was living under the delusion of thinking that children really weren't entitled to feelings and needs. And that, of course, is ridiculous because you're just as human as I am. Now, I would like us to start over. Can we have a reboot? I know that there's built up resentment because I was into forced compliance, obedience, and I used power over you. And I don't want to do that anymore. Right? I mean, if we can get to that level of honesty, I remember saying to my own daughter when she was 16, this conversation you and I are having right now, this one, if I had had that with my mother when I was your age, it would have changed my life.
Right. Then you just let that sit there for her, right? Yeah. It's true. And those moments are big time. And I commend you for all those things. Man, that was a great... I love that. I want to bottle that whole series of things that you just modeled, that language, that all those things. You could take one at a time, piece by piece by piece by piece, and try one a day.
Don't blame yourself. I mean, I want to add that. I think in order for us to move forward, please don't blame yourself.
Give yourself some grace for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. No fault, no blame, no guilt, no shame. No fault, no blame, no guilt, no shame. Unless we have this blanket sort of space where we get to be human, make mistakes, fall on our face, get it completely and utterly wrong.
Right. Unless
we just live in the land of responsibility.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
I know now.
Yeah.
I'm now realizing how much this hurt my relationship with you.
Yeah.
If I could go back and make it different, I would. I can't, but I can start from now.
That's right.
I understand why you're mad at.
Yeah.
I totally get it. And I get why you hide so much from me, because you were never given the grace of recognizing that you didn't have to be perfect, that you could make mistakes, that your behavior could be whatever it was, and that while you weren't happy with it and you knew I wouldn't be, that we weren't going to use power and control and reprimands and punishment. We were going to find out better ways that we could go going forward, that you could always call me, that we didn't live in a land where you were so afraid of me knowing about your mistakes that you would hide everything from me, but your persona of everything's fine when everything isn't fine.
Yeah. And, you're bringing up some stuff for me too, because it's funny because sometimes you don't catch it in time and there's enough good things going on in the relationship that other stuff is just kind of like, well, it could be worse, right? So you have these moments, right? And I look back on my childhood. My mom, she's coming up a lot today, I see, but she apologizes to this day for things. And like when we got to start talking, she gets almost physically like, I can't even no, I wish I could do that differently. I screwed this up. Da, da, da. And she festers on that, right? And I literally, every time I'm just sort of taken aback by that, because I don't see my childhood like that at all. There was moments. Of course, I know what moments those were. But like there was so much good that's really all I remember. But the reason I brought that up is because there were definitely things now in retrospect, now that I know more, that's how I feel.
Sure.
I feel good about everything. But now that I know more, what I find interesting is what you're saying right now is so funny to me, because I hid everything from my mom in high school. My parents were
retaliation, rebellion, resistance, all of those. Yeah.
Like, I mean, I was, we had a good relationship talking and stuff like that, but my dad and my stepmom lived about 2 miles away. And my mom, my stepdad was where I lived. And then I went, kind of back and forth, very common, but all the stuff I was not allowed to ever do, I did that at dad's. Or I stayed at someone else's house, you know what I mean? And then at mom's house, I was just, we're going to church. We're doing
the
this.
perfect little angel.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so,
hidden lives, I think.
Exactly.
Right?
And like, I know enough about myself now to know that there was a lot going on. But at the same time, I look back on that and I go, wow, that is so interesting to me that I was so good at that. And it was natural. And it wasn't resentful. It was going back. Remember a minute ago, I said, I want to go back to that because it's the operant conditioning, right? It's the reward and punishment system to get what you want. Now, when you're training a cat to jump up on a table, you're going to use the treats and we're going to pet the cat. And eventually the cat will just come and do that without the treats and the petting. You will just say, cat, and boink, up they go. That's operant conditioning at its finest, right? At its basic, easiest. But we use it for everything. Right? Yeah. Reward systems. If you get an A, you get $50. If you get a B, you get $20. Or if you do the chores that I put on this list by the end of the week, you get an allowance. Or if you don't do this, you don't get to go to the movies. Like we do operant conditioning all the time. And so there's a place where in psychology, they'll tell you like the harsher the punishment, not the less likely will you do it. The more likely you are to make sure you don't get caught. So if you're terrified of the results, it doesn't mean that you're just not going to do it. It means that you're going to probably be sitting there going, well, if I get caught, I'm in big trouble. So I got to figure out another way to do what I want to do.
Exactly.
Do you see that a lot?
Why parents will come to me and say, I am so furious because my son or daughter is lying to me. And I said, well, have you created the conditions in which they can tell you the truth?
Ooh, right to the gut. Love it.
Because most families haven't.
Right.
And so I also have I think honestly, everybody who's been stuck in that old, we'll just call it the poisonous pedagogy of you have to make children behave because it believes that they wouldn't want to behave. And that, there's this negative view of children. And we're back to, I say, no, it's not true. I claim BS here. I don't believe that.
Right.
I believe that children are innocent. I believe they do want to please you. I believe that even though you might have some children who have higher autonomy needs than others, that no one wants to get on anyone else's bad side. We unfortunately don't have the kind of operating systems from the get-go that allow people to be able to express their needs for choice autonomy at young ages even. In fact, they now call it ODD often. Now, that's not to say that there isn't sometimes a diagnosis of ODD, but oftentimes I think it's just children with high autonomy needs who live in families that have high needs for obedience and compliance. And it's a perfect storm. Because if your modality is around obedience and compliance, which by and in and of itself is dangerous, to want to create a child conditioned to believe that they should override their own inner sense of rightness in order to be just perfunctorily obedient and compliant to this outer person that has power and control over them to make their life miserable. That is the absolute wrong thing you want to teach children. You want to teach them to trust their inner voice. You want to teach them to be connected to themselves internally, to be able to feel into a situation and sense whether they're safe or not,
Right.
to trust themselves rather than override their own guidance system on the basis of someone outside of me is who I respond to.
Right.
Because you can't teach people to give their power to other people.
Yeah.
And then they'll spend their whole life trying to figure out where their power is as if it's out there somewhere.
Yep. And then they get into a dangerous relationship and they hand it all over on a platter and then wonder why it's so dysfunctional later.
Exactly. Because they weren't taught to trust themselves. I would much rather have a conversation with a child that says, you know, I really want you to always trust yourself.
Yeah.
I want us to have a relationship in which when I talk about what I need to have done and you have something in you that arises, you feel that you can speak about that.
Right.
And then we can talk about it. Because I always want us both to be able to speak about what's coming up for me and what's coming up for you. And sure, you know, I still have to have like the house, you know, and moving forward, there's more than you, there's sisters and brothers and siblings. It's not to say that we're no longer the CEO, but
Right.
we're looking at this as how can I empower you so that you're self-motivated? Because everything about rewards and punishments is about outer motivation. It's about
it's
you
external,
have to do something. It's an external locus of causality, right?
Yep,
So we want
absolutely.
the internal locus. We want it to be that there is a cultivation of an environment in which they want to choose to do the thing out of the fact that there is something in them, the need to be considerate. It is there, and we can create the conditions under which it would be activated.
Right. Ooh, man, you are preaching today. Katherine, look at you go. Ooh, we're going to have like
Oh
3
my
episodes
God.
in a row on this. Let me ask you this, a follow-up question on what you just said. And this is the hardest part, in my opinion. Okay. You're a parent, you sit down your 14-year-old, and maybe you've been doing an okay job, right? And we're just having an issue. Something came up. Maybe it's, I really need you to, let's say you want them to help you around the house because you have a big get-together coming and they're a part of that. Maybe it's for them, birthday party for them.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you have to sit down and you're saying all the right things like you just did, right? And in that moment, you start getting the physical, nonverbal attitude responses, the eye rolls, the the sighs, the come on, I was just the excuses, and it starts to spiral in that regard, right? What is a tool that a parent can use that doesn't show them getting angry, it doesn't show them buying in, and they're still going to be like, hey, I'm the CEO, without having to flex up their power to get that situation in control and stop that in a moment to have that child actually hear what is being said?
Great. So, I mean, the rule of thumb is active listen, resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if we're in a communication ping pong match and, you know, I've salvoed the ball over the net and it said something along the lines of, hey, I could really use your help today to get ready for the thing or to get ready for the thing next month or whatever it is.
Right.
And you get the resistance. So then you can keep sending that same message over the net. So like, and, you know, hit it harder and I'm
Right.
gonna hit it harder. You know, I mean, what way am I going to get that ball to, you know, land
Right.
where I want it to land? And I would say that would be a mistake.
Okay. Good.
That you need to just grab the ball that you're communicating and recognize that there's something going on the receiver end that's getting in the way of my message landing. So I'm going to just now pause for a minute and get really curious about what's going on for you. Not knowing what is going on for you, but making no assumption about you being a spoiled brat or you being, you know, disrespectful or not putting any labels on it. So observation without evaluation is the highest form of human intelligence if we can do it.
Right.
So observation without evaluation is rule number one.
Okay.
Can I just be the observer without evaluating it? Okay, I'm observing that. The response that I'm getting is really like, I am dumbstruck by this response. I don't get it. I'm doing this nice thing for you. And you want this nice thing done. It's not like I'm imposing it on you. You asked for the party in this example. So what's happening? So that's where I just grab that ping pong ball, and I'm going to hold on to it for a minute before I communicate yet again the same message that's landing flat. And I'm going to just take a minute and pause and kind of just literally within myself wonder, God, I wonder what's going on for, little Jane, little Johnny. Wonder what's happening. And I'm just going to stop, and I'm going to be like, hey, I'm noticing that, this isn't landing for you. And I'm just like wondering what's happening. Would you be willing to tell me like what's going on for you right now? Right. So now I've completely shifted my demeanor to, there's something going on over here that I don't understand.
Got it. Yeah.
And I'm just curious about what that is. And I'm going to open the door and see if there's a willingness to come forward.
Wow.
Right. And I can just be with that person where they are. And depending on the age of the child and depending on a number of other conditions. So we can also back up just a little bit more and say conflict in relationship happens when a couple of things are not happening. One being connection. So have I been fostering connection? Do I have a lot of child-directed play built into my relationship?
Right.
Is my relationship on a daily basis, am I giving the 20 minutes per day of child-directed time together where I'm not directing it, but it's like, come on, Mom, let's play Lego, or come on, I really want to show you my thing, or can you help me build this such and such, or let's go for a walk. Child-directed 20 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day. Absolutely, without fail, I show up to do something that's directed by the child. If I'm doing that, a lot of the attitude disappears because their little tanks are full. And then the second one is, am I taking care of me? Am I taking care of me? Am I doing the bath? Am I doing whatever it is that helps me stay centered so that I'm not out of calibration?
Right.
So I'm taking care of me. I'm taking care of our one-on-one time. And now I'm here in this conversation and I can wonder to myself, well, it's not that and it's not that. So I have no idea what's going on, but I can see something's happened. And it may turn out that they had a horrible day or somebody called them a name or something. And what they're showing you is that they're struggling in their little heart and soul, depending on the age of the child. It could be any age, to be quite honest, managing this other thing that has nothing to do with request. Or maybe they didn't hear a request, they heard a demand.
Right.
And then we could go into the land of what's the difference between requests and demands, but I don't think we have time for that. But yeah, there are a lot of different things that could be going on.
Yeah. So with that example, that was perfect. That's exactly what I was trying to, get to. And so let's take it to the next step, right? You've assessed that, and then you grab the ping pong ball and you're like, wait a second, you're trying to weigh these options. Okay, it's not me, it's not this one. Okay. And you say, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And so you set it up, right? Here it is. Here's a nice open invitation to express what's going on. And that person says something, this 14-year-old, right? Or 15-year-old, whatever. He looks and he's like, and there's more. You get a second round of resistance, or maybe even an outburst that doesn't have anything to do with really expressing what's going on or the feelings or whatever. It's just boom, right? This raw emotional ball of stuff at you, okay? At this point, even well-trained parents might be like, ugh, listen, we don't have time for this or whatever, right? So what's the second line of, what's that second step? You've laid it out there, but you're also teaching how to feel safe and be able to show up for yourself and trust yourself and say stuff. So you have to model that in some sense in this by being firm, consistent, fair, open. How do you take that next step? Sure.
So when we are, kind of like setting ourselves, stepping back a little bit, and we're looking at the situation, we're saying, so who's got the problem?
Right.
Have I got the problem, or have they got the problem? I think they
you're
have the
asking?
problem.
Oh, you're asking. Oh,
Sorry, I mean, in this example, it seems like they're in a problem.
They've got a problem. Yes.
Something's going on for them. Now, I can choose to not join them and not also be in a problem zone.
Right.
And chances are we're going to have a much better outcome if I stay like the one who's not also going to join them in a problem zone, because I don't need to be in a problem zone.
No.
I can choose to be very firmly in the land of, I wonder if I could help them through their problem.
Right.
Rather than, I have a problem with the way you're talking to me. Right.
And now they got two problems.
Now I've got two problems. They've got a problem. I'm in reaction
right.
to the fact that they just didn't show up as the completely amenable person that I wish they were.
Right.
And, wanting to please and all the rest of it.
Right.
They showed up and they had a problem. And I'm really curious, but I'm going to let them be the only one in this dynamic right now who has the problem.
Yeah, I'm the helper. I'm going to help you out of your problem if you can let me.
I'm going to help you out of your problem. You can have a problem, but I'm not going to be in the problem zone. I refuse to. Right. I'm going to stay as a helper to help you through this because I'm more skilled than you are. Right. And I know that I have a bunch of things that I could do wrong right now.
Yes.
I can go into analyzing, diagnosing. I can go into questioning.
Right.
I mean, there's like 12 roadblocks to communication that will absolutely break this thing down. The only thing that's not going to break it down is me staying centered in connection, true, interested in connecting with you, concern, listening for everything that's not being said, all your nonverbals,
right,
and just being with you as you are, showing up as you are with whatever pain you're in, that's showing
right.
up as snarky or it's not. I mean, I can label these behaviors and I can go into judgment about, oh, you're being snarky or you're being disrespectful. These are all judgments. So we're back to observation without evaluation is the highest form of human intelligence.
Right.
Krishnamurti. Live it. Live it means roommate, right? I'll meet you in that place beyond right doing and wrong doing, right? So I'll meet you in that field. So I'm living in the field right now. And that's a field where I'm just like curious and I don't understand it. And I have absolutely nothing in me that makes you wrong or bad for not being in a place of joy. You're just
right.
not in a place right now. And I'm like, gosh, I wonder what's happening that you're not in a place of joy right now. I'm not saying that,
right.
but I'm like, inside I'm like, oh, wow, something's happened. And so I just want to be with you.
Yeah.
And I may not be saying that in words, but I'm saying it in my body language. I'm conveying it in my non-blameful communication. I'm not blaming you for anything. I'm just being with you. And I might say something like, tell me more about that.
Yeah, leading with curiosity and say more, that's always good because once you crack that egg, right? Once they have decided, all right, this is a non-threatening approach, they're genuinely asking, and usually what happens is it all starts spilling out, right? So that's good. When you get to that point, you're on your way. But I think that this is one of those things where this is why coaches like you exist, because it's not something you can't listen to this episode of this podcast and go out and be like, oh, I've completely changed and that's how I handle my business now. It just doesn't work that way, because everything that you've said is expert advice, right? You live it, you work in it, you've been doing it for a long time, and we know how to do that stuff. And I mean, I know how to do that now. I did not with my older kids, and so you learn, you get better, you try harder, and you could still go back and have conversations with your young adult children and say, hey, I want to let you know, I really dropped the ball a lot and I didn't do that well. And I'm sorry about that. And so,
honestly, most of my clients are parenting, young adults.
Right.
So they are trying to rewrite the script of their relationships, and they are succeeding.
Yeah, because they're getting to a new place of developmental stage as well. Those young 20s, I talk to my students that are in high school, my 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, and they're great. They're wonderful, right? I'm a teacher. I teach them. I direct them in musical theater, so we have a different relationship. I'm not their parent. We get to have fun together. So I don't have to deal with all the other stuff. And when those moments do come, when you want to go there, it's so easy for me to stay in my higher self and handle it appropriately because I don't have the really deep emotional connection to that. So that's easy. I go to my adult kids and they can say one thing and it could break my brain because it actually is 1,000 things and it's 10 years worth of stuff. It's all these things. And it's like, oh, okay, we're going to have a test today, I see. So what I'm getting at is if you're listening and you're a parent and you want it to get better, it will, but you gotta do the work and it's not going to happen overnight. And this kind of stuff is exactly why coaches like you are here, Katherine, because this is not an easy thing to face. And here on our podcast, the Teen Art Revolution, what we talk about a lot is the overwhelming impact of the digital age, of social media, of what screens are doing to young people, of the atrophy of the gray and white matter of the brain, of the dopamine depletion, of the circadian rhythms being off, all the extra challenges that teens and adults and parents are facing right now with Gen Z that is unprecedented. It's never happened in the history of our race. And here we have this huge shift. And so that extra piece makes it a wider gap when you're trying to build that bridge. So having people like you join us on this show to talk about communication, to talk about how coaching can work, it gives people hope, and it reminds both teens and children and adults and parents and teachers alike that, oh yeah, there is a better way to do this, and I can learn it and teach it and be better at it. And guess whose life gets better? Mine and the people around me. And so I'm so grateful for all these things that you're saying today. You're just dropping pearls. Dropping them pearls.
Pearls, absolutely. But I just want to acknowledge, and thank you for all the work you do, because, it's so wonderful when you can be that teacher in someone's life who just sees them and doesn't have any of the entanglement that would create the reaction, in the overreaction world. Right. And you're a healing balm, right? That's what I look at it. It's a healing balm to have that. It's a real safety blanket for kids to have that wonderful teacher that they can turn to, who is just loving them just the way they are and giving them an expression through the arts is amazing. Fantastic.
They need it. And you give them an opportunity, they will surprise you every time.
I know.
They will shock you. So many times we want to be the gatekeepers of all the information, and that's not helpful. I can't tell you how often I throw my keys to a kid and I'm like, hey, go up into the booth of the theater, go grab those 2 lights that are sitting there. Make sure you hit that switch on the left. When you come back down, make sure you get the gloves and the wrench and go put that over there. And they beam with pride because an adult just gave me their keys and a bunch of responsibility, and I'm going to do it great. Watch me. And they will shock you. So true. Most people shut that stuff down. It's so ridiculous.
It's so wonderful. I mean, I remember having a family, they were a client of mine, and they had a little boy. And he was literally like 5 or 6 years old. And he was getting in a lot of trouble at school. So sometimes I end up, going to school and talking to people at school and, visiting and stuff. And this was one of those times. And this little kid said to me, if they're going to treat me like a baby, I'm going to act like one. And I was like, and it's so clear. Like they were micromanaging him. All right, now everybody put your bag here and do this and do that, rather than what you just said of, he's like, as if I don't know where to put my bag. Like, he was just outraged that they were talking to him like he was an idiot.
Oh, that's how my son is.
So we had a big laugh about it. And it was really like, we live in a land of whose behavior needs to be modified.
Right.
And, do I need to modify my behavior? Do I need to modify the other person's behavior or hope that I could? Or do I need to create the circumstances in which they're prepared to modify their behavior because they want to? Right. Which is the way it ever works, by the way. Or do I need to modify the environment? So this was just a clear case of modifying the environment. Right. So if I can modify the environment, then the behavior that is the quote unquote problem behavior absolutely disappears.
Of course.
And so let's find the ways that we can modify situations and environments, because that's the easiest thing to do. And it can create outcomes and differences in our dynamics. I mean, there are all kinds of, with the mindset of catch them doing it right, highlight, amplify, verify, in order to create that experience, but do not praise, because
Right.
of course praise is the number one way to lower someone's self-esteem. So let's not get into that diabolical behavior, because it's just another version of rewards and punishments where we hold praise as a way to manipulate.
Right.
But we do want to highlight, verify, and acknowledge. And so we do want to catch them doing it right and be, wow, I really appreciate the fact that you picked up your dishes and put them in the sink. Thank you.
The praise.
But not, oh, you're such a good boy or good girl, which would be the land of praise. So it's not about meeting my level.
Yeah,
right?
Acknowledgement of help doesn't come across as condescending. Praise can. And you got to be careful. Like, it's the word praise can have a little bit of weight to it sometimes, and you're right. The
research is crystal clear. Praise is the number one way that you lower someone's self-esteem. So it's not what anyone wants to do.
It's not the same as gratitude. Gratitude is different.
It's not gratitude, and it's not acknowledgement.
Right. Hey, thanks for doing that. That made my day, because I was thinking, oh man, I got to take care of that, and you had already done it. That's awesome. Thanks. Appreciate that. And then guess what? They start doing more.
Time.
They start doing more. No, they just start doing more and more and more. Yeah, we are at time. I just want to talk. I just want to talk to you forever.
I thought you were going to say we're out of time, and I was like,
I know.
No, but right, of course they do more of it because we caught them doing it right.
Yes,
exactly. And they were going to do it right anyway.
Exactly. I told my son last week.
They're in a reaction to power being used over them, and then even though they wanted to do it right, now they absolutely can't.
Right.
Because it looks like the reason I'm doing it is because you made me do it, and I'm never going to let you think that you can make me do anything.
Oh, my gosh.
So now I can't do it.
I lived in a house where I was told for a long time, and this is not my childhood, by the way. This was as an adult, where I was told, I want you to just do the laundry. I have to do all the laundry. I have to do all the laundry. I was like, okay, cool. I have no problem doing that. And I had tried before, right? Let's just say it's the first time I'm talking about. I said, okay, well, I'm going to do the laundry. And then not even 10 minutes in, what are you doing? Oh, I'm doing the laundry. That's not how you do it. No, just move. I'll do it.
Oh, no. Oh, God.
Over and over and over. And I'm a grown man. Oh. And my kids had to deal with that a lot as well. And it was hard. And so looking back on those moments, every one of them mattered so much. And so we have all these little things going on now with my adult children that it's like, okay, well, let's talk about that, because I think we can probably trace that back to this or that or whatever. And it's helping them figure that stuff out. But at the same time, my younger son, as a really good thing, last week I told him, I said, look, do you mind helping me out? I pulled all your clothes out of the dryer. I have them in a pile on your bed. I have to go do this and this and this. If you're going to be in here and you're listening to your music, do you mind folding these and putting them away? And he had about 15 seconds of falling down and stuff. And I said, I know, I don't want to do it either. I totally understand. I'll be back when I'm done with those other tasks. But if you get done before that, let me know. And I was respectful about it, and just kind of not dismissing his reaction so much as he's had big emotional outbursts throughout his young life, and so before it escalates, it's okay. And then I thought to myself, if he does it, great. If he doesn't, we'll talk about that later. He shut his bedroom door, and he came out and was so excited to show me that he had not only done all of it, it was the best he's ever folded anything. I mean, we're talking socks in their little ball, like everything, and he was so excited about it. It was awesome. And like those moments when you get them, you just cherish them to death, because they're not always, but we get better as we go. So, Katherine, this has been great. I have a question for you before we do go. I mean, we could talk forever, and obviously we're having you back on the show for sure. Yeah. But I want to know, when I look at your website, so the first thing I notice is it's got the word revolution in it, which I'm all about because we got the teen art revolution going on here.
Exactly.
But it's consciousparentingrevolution.com. Is that correct?
Yes.
Excellent. And then I also noticed that you have some amazing best-selling books out there. Like, tell us about your work in that field and where we can go to get more information.
Yeah. So I actually have 3 TED Talks as well. So you can go to the website and you can see, I think, where all the TED Talks are.
Mm-hmm.
And I recommend those for parents because they really do focus a lot on all of the things we've been talking about. But I also have an Amazon bestseller called 7 Strategies to Keep Your Relationship with Your Kids from Hitting the Boiling Point. And so that's my gift to your audience, and they can go to freeparentingbook.com.
Okay.
And they can download the book, and it will really give you some strategies to keep your relationship with your kids from hitting the boiling point.
And seven is such an easy, manageable number. That's so great because sometimes parents are like, oh my gosh, if I read a whole book, and then they just get overwhelmed before they start. But a nice starting point, 7 tips, that's great.
It's not too much. It's bite-sized, and I think it'll support people with where they are.
I love that. I love that so much, and I can't wait to watch your TED Talks. I am so excited.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff. This has been amazing. Thank you
so much. You are a wonderful light, and love talking to you too. We should definitely keep in touch, and I will be reaching out to you as we go forward because we're going to have you back, and we're going to follow up on some things. Does that sound good?
Amazing. That would be so great.
You're incredible, Katherine. Thank you so much.
Likewise.
We'll talk soon. Bye.
Okay.